You don't wake up one day and decide to stop caring. It doesn't work like that. You don't flip a switch and suddenly feel nothing for someone who once meant everything to you. If anything, the more you try to force yourself not to care, the more you feel it. The more you try to push the thoughts away, the louder they come back. And that's the part no one tells you. Letting go is not about becoming cold. It's not about pretending you never cared. And it's definitely not about erasing someone from your memory. It's about something much deeper. It's about reclaiming control over your mind before your emotions take control over you. Because right now, if you're honest with yourself, there's a part of you that's still holding on. Maybe it's to a person, maybe it's to a version of them that no longer exists, or maybe it's to a story you told yourself about what this connection was supposed to become. And that story is what's hurting you. Not them. Not the situation, but the meaning you gave it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact, and everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. And when it comes to emotional attachment, that idea changes everything, because what you're really attached to is not the person, it's your interpretation of them. It's the late-night conversations you replay. It's the imagined future that never happened. It's the feeling you had when things were still good. And your mind keeps trying to go back there, again and again and again. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. That version of reality is gone. And the more you resist that, the more you suffer. So if you're still here, I want you to stay until the end. Because one of these shifts, especially the third one, can completely change the way you experience emotional pain. And more importantly, it can give you something most people never develop: emotional freedom. Because the goal here is not to stop feeling. The goal is to stop being controlled by what you feel. Now, the first shift is something most people intellectually understand, but emotionally refuse to accept: impermanence. Everything ends. Every relationship, every connection, every phase of your life. And that sounds harsh at first. But the real problem is not that things end. It's that you expect them not to. You expect people to stay the same. You expect feelings to remain constant. You expect the connection you once had to always be there. But life doesn't work like that. People change. Circumstances change. And sometimes, the person who once felt like home becomes a stranger. And when that happens, your mind goes into resistance. No, this isn't how it's supposed to be. This wasn't supposed to end like this. They weren't supposed to leave, and that resistance creates pain, because you're trying to hold on to something that is already slipping away. It's like trying to hold sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it falls apart. And the Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't detach because they didn't care. They detached because they understood the nature of reality, that nothing is permanent, not even the people you love. And when you truly accept that, something changes. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. You stop clinging. You stop begging life to stay the same. And instead, you begin to appreciate what is, without needing it to last forever. That's where emotional strength begins. Not in holding on, but in letting things be exactly as they are. Now here's where most people get stuck. They think their emotions are coming from the situation, from what happened, from what someone did or didn't do. But that's not actually true. Your emotions are not caused by events. They are caused by your interpretation of those events. And this is one of the most powerful ideas in Stoicism, because it means something very simple. You are not a victim of your emotions. Your emotions are a reflection of your thoughts. Think about it. Someone doesn't reply to your message. That's the event. Neutral. But then your mind steps in. They're ignoring me. They don't care about me. I did something wrong. And suddenly, the emotional spiral begins. Anxiety, frustration, overthinking. But none of that came from the event. It came from the meaning you assigned to it. And the dangerous part is, you don't even question it. You just believe it. Automatically. As if your first thought is always the truth. But Marcus Aurelius warned against this. He said that your mind has the power to shape your reality, that you can choose how you interpret what happens, and that choice determines how you feel. So instead of asking, why do I feel this way? Ask a different question. What am I telling myself about this? Because that's where your power is. Not in controlling what people do, but in controlling how you think about what they do. If you can master that, you can calm any emotional storm. And if you're starting to see this differently, take a second and hit because this is the moment where most people begin to shift. Now, the third principle might feel uncomfortable, but it's one of the most powerful tools you can use: negative visualization. And no, this is not about being pessimistic. It's about being prepared. Most people avoid thinking about loss. They avoid imagining what it would feel like if someone left or if a relationship ended, because it hurts. But here's the paradox. The more you avoid that thought, the more power it has over you. You become attached, not just to the person, but to the idea that they must stay. And that creates fear, constant fear. Fear of losing them, fear of things changing, fear of the unknown. But when you face that fear directly, something surprising happens. It loses its grip on you. When you allow yourself to imagine life without that person, not to suffer, but to understand, you begin to realize something important. You would survive. Your life would continue. You would adapt. And that realization weakens the emotional dependency. Because now, you're not holding on to them out of fear. You're choosing to be present without needing them to stay forever. And that's a completely different kind of connection. One based on awareness, not attachment. The Stoics practiced this daily. They would imagine losing the things they valued, not to become cold, but to become resilient, to remind themselves that everything is temporary and that their peace must come from within, not from external conditions. Because if your peace depends on someone staying, then you are always at risk of losing it. Now let's talk about control, because this is where most emotional suffering comes from. Trying to control things you cannot control. You cannot control how someone feels about you. You cannot control whether they stay or leave. You cannot control whether they value you the way you want to be valued. And yet, that's exactly what most people try to do. They try harder. They give more. They over-explain. They overthink. They bend themselves into someone they think will be loved. And in the process, they lose themselves, because they are chasing something that is not theirs to control. And that creates exhaustion, emotional burnout, a constant feeling of never being enough. But here's the shift. You don't need to control them. You need to control you. Your actions, your standards, your boundaries, your response. That's it. That's where your power is. Not in making someone stay, but in deciding what you tolerate. Not in forcing someone to love you, but in choosing whether you stay where you are not valued. And the moment you truly understand this, you stop chasing. You stop proving. You stop begging for attention, because you realize something deeper. If someone cannot meet you at your level, it's not your job to lower yourself. It's your job to walk away. And that's not weakness. That's self-respect. Now I want you to think about this. How much of your emotional pain comes from trying to control outcomes, trying to fix things that are already broken, trying to hold on to people who are already distant? That effort is what's draining you, not the situation itself, but your resistance to it. Because deep down, you already know. You already feel the shift. You already sense that something has changed, but you keep going back, hoping it will return to what it was. And that hope is what keeps you stuck. So instead of asking, how do I make this work? Ask something else. What if it's not meant to work anymore? And just sit with that. Don't react. Don't justify. Just observe. Because that question opens the door to acceptance. And acceptance is where freedom begins. Not control. Not forcing. Acceptance. And finally, there's one perspective that changes everything. The bigger picture. Right now, this situation feels overwhelming. It feels like everything, like your entire emotional world is tied to this one person, this one outcome, this one story. But zoom out. 5 years from now, will this moment define your life? Will this person be the center of your existence? Or will this just be one chapter in a much larger story? Because if you look back at your past, you've already been here before, you've already lost people, you've already gone through emotional pain, and yet, you're still here, stronger, wiser, more aware. So what makes this moment any different? Nothing, except your perception. And when you shift that perception, everything changes. You begin to see that this pain is not the end. It's a transition, a redirection, an invitation to grow into someone who is no longer dependent on external validation, someone who does not lose themselves in others, someone who can care deeply without losing control. That's emotional strength. Not shutting down, not becoming cold, but becoming stable. centered it, grounded in yourself, so the next time you feel that urge to check their profile, to replay the conversation, to wonder what they're doing, pause it and ask yourself one question: am I in control right now, or am I reacting? Because that moment, that single moment of awareness, is where your power lives. And if you've ever felt this, comment one below. Because you're not alone in this. Most people just never learn how to step back, but you are, right now. And that changes everything. So remember this: you don't need to stop caring, you just need to stop clinging. You don't need to forget them, you just need to remember yourself. And when you do that, you don't lose them. You find something much more important. You find your freedom. And if you want to go deeper into this, into how to control your mind, your reactions, and your emotional power, make sure you subscribe, because the next video will show you exactly how to become mentally unshakable, no matter who comes or goes.